Awesome. It says we are now streaming. So welcome everybody. Thanks for joining us again for our conversation series with business and professional women of Greater Moncton. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Amanda Devison. I am the Vice President of Business and Professional Women of Greater Moncton. We've been having this conversation series throughout COVID because in regular times we would meet once a month and have a great networking session, and unfortunately, with COVID, we can't do that in person, but we still wanted to stay connected. And we really wanted to highlight some of the incredible women in our community. So joining me tonight is another incredible woman, Tracey MacDonald. So she's going to give us some awesome strategies about kind of hitting that reset button, maybe some new tips and tricks of how we can tackle 2021. A lot of us are, I think, barely existing in that distressed stage of life because we've been literally living this pandemic for a year now. It's exhausting, physically, emotionally, psychologically, all those things. And, maybe we need to kind of take a step back and, take a view from the balcony and think about, well, how can we kind of, move things along in 2021, and maybe again need to hit that reset button. So also super shout out to Tracey. This is her book here. So she co-authored a book called The Gift of Shift: Discover the Key Within to Unlock Your Best Life. Cool side story. I actually saw this in chapters the other day and I was like, I know her. So it's really cool to be in chapters and like see a book with an author of someone you actually know. So that's super cool. As you can see, almost finished reading it. That'll be finished tonight before I go to bed. Really enjoying it. The stories are really cool. To give people an idea, it gives you stories and then there's questions that you can think about from the stories that were told to help you kind of, internalize it a bit, and then kind of pages for you to kind of put in your own story as well. So it's really neat. I recommend everybody go and pick up a copy. And I'm going to give you guys Tracey's bio from the back of the book. So this is a unique one. This is pretty cool that I get to read it from a book. That's pretty neat. And then I'll hand things over to Tracey. If you guys have any questions or comments, please feel free to post them in the comments on here. I'm going to keep an eye on it. I have my iPad over here. So even while Tracey's presenting, I'll keep an eye on questions and comments. And if Tracey asks anybody, feel free to post your kind of response to her presentation in there, and we'll kind of keep things going. If you're watching this in the replay, no worries. Tracey's going to keep an eye on the comments. At BPW, we'll tag her if somebody asks a question so that she can make sure that she kind of gets back to you. So we want to make sure we're bringing all kinds of value and education. So no worries there. Feel free to ask questions in the post as well, because, Tracey will follow up. So Tracey MacDonald, PCC, is an international life, leadership, and mentor coach. She is passionate about empowering people to expand their self-awareness, connect to their inner wisdom, increase their emotional intelligence and communication skills so they can achieve greater success, happiness, and overall fulfillment. She continues to touch many lives with her inspiration and teachings through one-on-one coaching, workshops, seminars, and accessible online resources. Tracey is known for her fun, loving, and positive energy in helping others gain clarity and focus to take their personal and professional lives to the next level. She currently resides in Moncton, New Brunswick. However, she and her husband have been known to move frequently. You can learn more about Tracey at tracymaccoaching.com. Tracey has attained the International Coach Federation Accreditation Professional Certified Coach level. Holy cow, fit that on a business card. She is an Energy Leadership Index Master Practitioner, a certified practitioner of neuro-linguistic programming, and is a member of the Association of Integrative Psychology. So please join me in welcoming Tracey MacDonald.
Yay.
Thanks, Tracey. I'll hand things over to you. I'm just going to mute myself so there's no background noise, and I'll let you take the floor.
Well, thank you for that beautiful introduction, Amanda. I truly appreciate it. And I am super, super excited to talk about our topic tonight, which is punch the reset button, strategies for shifting into a stronger, more resilient mindset for 2021. And as Amanda was saying, wow, have we ever been challenged would be an understatement within this last year, for sure. So my question to start off is, what is the number one emotion that you've been experiencing since the pandemic hit? You can type it in the chat and Amanda can take a peek at it. Or if you just want to take a moment to reflect, what is the number one emotion that you've been experiencing since the pandemic hit?
I'm trying to think of how even to verbalize my own.
There's so many, right? Like, I mean,
Yes.
it can be up and down, right? But I'm
Yes.
just curious, like, what would be like one of the major ones, right? And it's so interesting. I gave this presentation to Horizon, and some of the comments in the chat was stress, anxiety, overwhelm. And on the other end of the stick, some people were putting freedom, calm. So it was really interesting to get everybody's feedback on that. And I even think about my own experience with clients that came to see me. It was literally two ends of the stick. There was people that were in complete overwhelm, wondering if they're going to lose their business, right? While the other people were like, I have so much time, I don't know what I'm going to do with my time. And now that, everything's on a pause, how do I find out what I really want in life? So it was such two ends of the stick, emotionally.
Yeah.
I
One
love
of the comments here is heaviness,
Yeah,
chaos, uncertainty.
yeah, exactly. Heaviness, uncertainty. I love this. This one actually made me laugh. Well, yes, I'm a bit stressed. Why do you ask? I'm like, yeah, that I could totally relate to that, especially if you're on the hamster wheel. you know because stress was a huge one. And bang on to the person who said uncertainty. I mean, think of anxiety. That's what anxiety is living in the future in uncertainty, right? How do you want to feel instead? Here's the question. How do you want to feel instead? And if you were to think about that emotion for a minute, on a scale to 1 to 10, right now, 1 not at all, 10 completely, how much would you say you're experiencing that emotion right now? Right? Take a moment and think about that.
I would say for me, I'll give it a minute because there's a delay between us chatting here and what shows up on Facebook, the feed.
Okay, great.
For me, I would say I would definitely want to feel more relaxed. I've definitely been cranked pretty high on the anxiety scale.
Yep.
So I want to feel relaxed. How much of that do I feel right now on a daily basis? Probably a solid 1.
Wow. But that, I mean, you're being honest with yourself, right?
Yes. Yeah.
This is what I want. I want to be more relaxed. In reality, I'm a 1 of how much I'm actually experiencing it. Yeah.
Here we have someone said they want to feel a sense of acceptance.
Acceptance. Beautiful. I wonder what, again, see, then I get really curious. I'm like, what does acceptance mean to them? And how does that show up? Yeah. Acceptance. Acceptance of what is, I'm curious.
Yeah, maybe we'll see if Karen, if you want to elaborate on that of what do you acceptance of in what way, I guess.
Yeah, in what way? Acceptance of, I love that word, acceptance. And we'll be talking about that too. So let me just move on then. What do you think needs to change in order for you to feel that way more often? So even, for example, the acceptance, what do you think needs to change in order for you to feel that way more often, even relaxed? Okay. Now, if anybody who probably heard me present, even at the last BPW, I was talking about energy. And how I see energy is a frequency, a vibration. Easily to put, energy equals power. The more energy you have, the more power you have. If you think of a light bulb, a 50-watt light bulb compared to 100 watts, well, what gives off more light, right? The 100 watts. Well, us humans, let's pretend we have millions of watts of potential. We may not necessarily shine as bright as we could. So if you were to even break it down into the different categories, usually I have this in a life wheel, right? Think about it again on that sliding scale. How bright are you shining in some of these areas in personal development, spiritual awareness, fun and enjoyment, intimate, social relationships, health, personal, career, family, because you could be shining really, really bright in some areas, and some areas you may be a little bit dimmer. For some, it could be feeling almost burnt out, right? So how do you categorize that? How do you
Yeah. So
continue to shine?
Karen said she's for acceptance, accepting the unknown because it changes daily. So,
Oh,
mhm,
yeah.
mhm.
Yeah, some security with that acceptance of the unknown because it does change daily. I think that's the biggest thing that is a guarantee in life, that things change.
Yeah, and your slide here about these different buckets. I actually read an interesting article the other day. I think it was called the 7 types of rest that every person needs. I can't remember if I don't remember the number, but anyways, it was various types of rest you need, and it was talking about how you can be getting adequate sleep and still wake up feeling exhausted, and
Yeah.
it's because you're not getting rest in these other things, like you're not being creative or you're not being bonding with in like certain relationships. So you could be getting amazing sleep and still wake up feeling exhausted because there's a different bucket basically that's empty. So I think,
Absolutely.
yeah, this exercise you're talking about here, like with the life wheel or this slide, is really something people should reflect on because, it could be that there's just a part, obviously our human interactions are being neglected. So that's a huge drain, but maybe there's other buckets you can focus on filling up in the meantime.
And you're bang on. Creativity, think of creativity. I mean, how much when you are fully engaged with it. And I'm not talking about the like, let's say if you see an artist, right? If you see an artist and they're fully in that engagement of creativity, that passion, that higher vibration is just flowing through them. They can't wait to get it out onto the canvas versus someone is like, oh, is it going to sell at the market? I don't know. So as you said, what creates that high beautiful light, fills your bucket per se, versus what are the thoughts that are contracting you, right? I love Wayne Dyer. If you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. I was listening to him and he shared such a beautiful story, which I'll share with you. He was saying, picture this, you're inside your home and you have a key in your hand and the lights go out, there's a power failure. And all of a sudden you drop your key. And so you start looking for your key, stumbling around in the dark, and you're looking for your key and you're looking for your key. And you're like, grumbling, I can't find it. And you happen to look outside and there is a light under the lamppost, like a light. And you're like, oh, I'm going to go outside and look for my key then. So out you go, looking under the light for your key. And your neighbor comes by and he's like, oh, what are you doing? Oh, I dropped my key. I'm looking for it. He's like, oh, let me help you. Let me help you find it. So you both are out there looking under the lamp, for your key. And he's like, the neighbor's like, so where did you drop your key? Oh, I dropped it in the house. And he's like, well, what are you doing looking out here? Well, there's a light on out here. So I thought this would be the best place to look for it. Now, that may seem a little ridiculous, but how often in our own lives, right, when we have a problem or an issue, and the problem and the issue is on the inside, but we're looking for the solutions outside of ourselves. How do you own your key? How do you turn on your light? How do you recognize you are the light? Right? So, when you're looking at situations in your life, I love this model, CIA, control, influence, accept. So, if you have a situation going on, breaking it down, what do I have control over? What do I have influence over? What do I need to accept? There you go, Karen. There's that word, acceptance. Control, influence, accept. You have no control over others. This is where a lot of people get drained. You have no control over others. You have influence at best. You have control over only you. Only you, right? And so it's becoming more of a masterful influencer, yes, that you have control over to learn the skills and become a better communicator. But it's to recognize, where do you go into resistance of wanting to control others? But it's also recognizing, what do you need to accept, right? If it's raining outside, I can spend my whole day complaining about that, right? And get drained, because you will get drained. And I'm just using that metaphorically by just going over it and over and over it. Or you can recognize, what do I have control over? Well, I have control over how I want to respond to the rain, right? How do I want to influence the situation? Well, great. I'll, get some of my gear on and, whatever. If I get a little wet, big deal. I'll grab an umbrella. So my point is how do you become into more solution focused, right? Looking for the options versus stuck in the things you can't control. And also become more aware of what's really worth your energy, right? What's really worth your energy? Worry is like walking around with an umbrella, waiting for it to rain. Think about that. It's like walking around with an umbrella. And if you think about that, if I hold up an umbrella, it doesn't hurt. If I carry that around day in, day out, it starts to get heavy. My arm, shoulder, whatever, it affects everything. But not only that, when it's sunny out, where does it become more shaded? Where you don't even get to experience the sun, right? Recognizing it. Yes, there's going to be days that you will need an umbrella, right? When the situation arrives, but where are you in uncertainty, anticipating constantly and not being able to enjoy what's in front of you now? This is in my book, F.E.A.R, fear. And I'm not talking about fight or flight. I'm talking about false evidence appearing real, right? This is the BS stories that we can get caught up in. I remember one of the instructors where I took my training, she says, we all have masters in MSU. Her name was Karen Sullivan. I think she even trademarked it. She goes, we all have masters in MSU. She goes, making shit up. And so it's to recognize, when are you hauling out your master's degree unnecessarily, where you're getting caught up in the assumptions, where you're getting caught up in the interpretations of what that all means, and getting caught in the fear of running it around and running it around and running it around. And again, creating that contraction within yourself. I love this story. I shared it at the last BPW, but I want to bring it up just in case, as a reminder. It was a grandfather. He was talking to his grandson, and he was saying, grandson, there's a battle of two wolves that lives inside of us all. He goes, one wolf is evil. It is jealousy. It is greed. It's inferiority. It is lies. It is ego. Now, the other wolf, it is good. It is peace. It is love. It is hope. It is kindness. It is compassion and truth. And so the grandson thought about it for a minute and he said, grandfather, which wolf wins? And the grandfather looked at his grandson and said, the one you feed. The one you feed. So which wolf are you feeding on a daily basis? Anxiety versus truth, right? Thinking about this, we're talking about the anxiety, right? It's uncertainty. How do you recognize fear versus facts? Right? How do you really get that out there? I mean, this is something I did some worksheets. If anybody wants some copies, feel free to email me. I'd be more than happy to share them. It's basically sticking to the facts, because if you get stuck into the stories and all the fear, that you're not making your decisions based on what is capital T truth, right? Recognizing that, again, what's causing contraction within you. Fear versus facts. No magic potions, no fairy dust, no one to do it for you, just me. I will push you, show you how to put one determined foot in front of the other. That's what I will do. I am inside you. I'm called your inner strength. Dig down deep and find me. Dig down deep and find me. How often are you playing those beautiful parts of yourself? Strength, your inner strength, courage. How about bringing passion to the party even? Truth. The more you do not exercise these muscles, right? These parts of you, the more they get weakened, let's say, just like a muscle. And if you tend to play fear and bring that to the party all the time, the anxiety parts, the uncertainty parts, you will strengthen those parts. They say what we have between 50 to 75 thoughts in a day. Some of the research is saying that up to 80% are negative in most people. Up to what, 90 or 95% are some of the thoughts that you thought the day before, right? Where do you become more conscious of your thought patterns? Where do you become more conscious of the parts that you want to start playing full out? How about letting go of should, right? Letting go of some of those things that don't serve you. You know, should. You probably heard this before. People will should all over you, right? And the thing is, you got to recognize that where do you let go so that again, you have room for you. It's instead of I should do this, I choose to do this. I want to do this. There's a different energy that goes with those words, right? Versus I have to. Do you really have to, or do you choose to? Right? Know the difference. So instead of just doing a to-do list, how about doing a not to-do list? You know, for 2021, what do you want to stop doing? You know, what do you want to stop doing to create the space that you really, really need? What are you choosing, not that you have to, choosing to do, right? Most
One
of
of the
you choose,
things I heard someone
yeah,
say the other day actually was same thing. They said to have a not to do list, and their not to do list for the day was to not drink cold coffee. And she said that's because if she's drinking cold coffee, it means she's not taking a moment. She's rushed, basically, that she's rushed and she's not taking a moment to enjoy her hot coffee. So her on her not to do list for that day was to not drink cold coffee.
I love that you just shared that. And that's exactly, it doesn't have to be these grand scheme, right? It's just those little moments, sometimes those little things where you choose, I'm not going to drink cold coffee. I'm going to actually enjoy a hot cup of coffee. I'm going to enjoy every sip that I do actually take a moment to put to my lips, right? Not to do. Exactly. Thank you, Amanda. That's exactly. What is your why? What is your why? Why did you choose the profession that you choose, right? Or maybe it's something that outside of that, like a foundation or a group that you're in. Why do you do what you do? Think about that. I remember this was the first time I shared this story was yesterday with Horizon Healthcare. I remember this was years ago. I went to actually have a mole removed. It was suspicious looking and it came back benign, so that was awesome. And so they stitched me up. And when they left the room, I jumped up really quickly and I guess I fainted and I fell and I cracked my head really, really hard. Actually, I knocked myself out unconsciously so hard. Actually, I think I sat out of my body, but that's a whole different conversation. But when I came to, I was totally in shock. Like they had the neck brace on me. They had me in the on the bed to take me to the hospital. And I remember reaching back and my hand was full of blood. And I just remember being in shock. Anyways, fast forward, I was outside on the bed waiting for an MRI scan. And I will never forget this man, obviously, that worked there. He was coming down the hall, and obviously, because he had his little badge on. And first of all, let me back up. My husband was away. traveling at that time. My family's probably about an hour and a half, and heaven forbids I would make them worry by calling them. Friends are at work. So at that moment, I never felt so alone. I never felt so alone. And I couldn't even believe what just happened. And I remember tears were just flowing through my eyes. And it wasn't like crying, like, when you cry, it's like I had absolutely no control. Like they were just pouring out of my eyes. And the man gently came over and he put his hands on my bed. He goes, "Why are you crying?" And he had the most loving and compassionate energy. And I just shook my head. I'm like, I don't know. And he goes, "You going to be okay?" And he asked it in a question. But as I said, what he exuded in that moment was such kindness and caring and compassion. So what I actually heard was, "You're going to be okay." Right? And I just shook my head. I'm like, "Yes." He's like, "Okay." And he went, and off he went on his day. And I'm like, he had no idea. He had no idea how less than 30 seconds of his time made such an impact on me, right? I've always practiced kindness, but I never really felt really experienced what that felt like in that moment. And I mean, that's it. Sometimes we think it has to be these grand scheme of things. Sometimes it's just those little moments to check in with somebody. Sometimes it's just those little moments to give a smile, and just, that we're all in it together. As I said, he has no idea, but the ripple effect. I send my big thank you out to the universe, to you, whoever you are. But my point is how do you connect to your why, right? Why you do what you do. I mean, with me, my why is helping increase consciousness in the world, to help increase self-awareness. It has been the most massive gift in my own life, and I can't help but want to share that. How do you stay connected to your why? Find your why and you'll find your way. Find your why and you will find your way. Even within everything that's going on right now, right? When you have that something to keep you connected, to get you up, to want to share, right? To give, whatever that is, your gift. And if it could be just something simple as I said, a smile to someone else. How do you connect to your why of service? How beautiful a day can be when kindness touches. Random acts of kindness, right? And right now, there is so many ways you can practice this. So many ways. Inhale confidence, exhale doubt. So when we go into those feeling of the overwhelm, the stress, sometimes it's just taking a moment to connect to your breath, to connect to your breathing. And I mean deeply breathing, right? I mean, especially because most people are in that fight or flight response mode. You want to try to bring in that parasympathetic system, right? You want to try to connect to your breath, connect to just the moment, connect to the body. Something so simple that we all have access to. Be here now. I did a video on this actually. I was walking on a beach. Beach is absolutely one of my favorite places to be. And I was walking along the beach and I couldn't, was thinking all week that I couldn't wait to be there. I was finally there. And when I was there, I was like, oh my goodness, I got to do this, this, and this. Oh yeah, I have to prepare for this, blah, 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 blah. And I caught myself. I'm like, as the saying goes, having a great time, wish I was here, right? How do you start practicing being here now? So I caught myself and I brought myself back. And the quickest way to practice being more present in the here and now is connecting to your senses even. Okay, what am I hearing? What am I tasting? What am I touching? What am I seeing? Go through the different senses. It allows you to be here now, right? When someone's talking to you, how can you be here now, not thinking about what you need to say in 10 seconds from now when they're talking. How do you be here now to really fully engage what's here before you? Start each day with a grateful heart, right? Something simple. I want you to think about this for a moment and maybe write it in the chat. And same thing, Amanda, I'll get you to answer this. If you would wake up tomorrow and if you weren't thankful for it today, you would lose it. What would be that one thing, at least one thing that you would decide to be grateful for?
Oh my goodness, that's a loaded question.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things for me, I would think, definitely. I don't want to necessarily verbalize them all to the world.
That's okay, but you can feel it.
Yes. Yeah. And I've done that. I've done the gratitude thing too, where I try to, like, at least the gratitude journal, where like each day I want to list at least 3 things I was grateful for in that day. And it makes me think back to when you were talking earlier about when it was raining and like, if what's your mentality going to be? Because there was a day where it was raining and I was this was a few years ago, and I was very cranky. Everyone in front of me was driving super slow. Like, it was just like everything was kind of like, I was already feeling annoyed. And so everything was just continuing to feed that feeling. Absolutely. And as I was driving down the street at one point, and it's like coming down, it's raining hard. And I see this puppy and he's playing in a puddle and he is having the best time. And something in my brain went like, we're both experiencing the exact same day. And I'm here, cursing up a blue streak in my car because people are driving too slow. And then meanwhile, this puppy's outside in the spilling rain, having the time of his life in a puddle. So
I love that story. You know what? That reminds me of, that's so interesting. You just said that. My niece, when she was just a little girl, I'm going to say maybe 4, I can't remember. It was so long ago. And same thing, that we were outside an event and all of a sudden it started to rain and everybody like, rah, 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 and, run into their car, and she's running behind me, and we get in the car and, I just kind of snuggle up beside her and she's like, what's the big commotion about with everybody? It's just rain. So just even that, I'm like, where did you learn the word commotion? Like, I couldn't, it was so cute, but I'm like, yeah, you're totally right. What is the big commotion about?
Yeah. And literally it ended up turning my whole day around because I just burst out laughing because it was one of those moments, right? Like where the universe just talks to you. And so I burst out laughing at the fact that I was like, yeah, it's the same day, just he's experienced it the right way. And so that kind of altered my mood for the rest of the day.
And I love that because you just, as you said, it was like almost that sign, and that you said, we're experiencing the same thing, right? We're both in the rain, but you're right. Your emotion, what you are experiencing, will filter how you experience that day. If you're feeling anger, you will experience that. I mean, that's what you will filter through, right? Anything that would normally annoy you, it's going to 10 times it. But again, if you find a different part of you, right? If you were feeling more happy, it just, you don't even see the situation the same. You just don't. It's quite interesting how the emotion can really dictate your experience. This is by Oprah Winfrey. The more thankful I became, the more my bounty increased. That's because, for sure, what you focus on expands. When you focus on the goodness in life, you create more of it, right? Energy flows where focus goes. And so it's also bringing awareness. Where do you put your focus on a daily basis, right? This is huge. If you want changes, is where do you start recognizing where your focus is, Don't make resolutions, build habits. This is big, right? It's recognizing, how do you build a habit? And it's even starting off your day. It's like, not like, oh, I'm going to wait to see how I feel. It's like, okay, how am I going to put myself in the state on how I want to feel, right? What do I need to be doing differently in order to create the feeling that I want to feel. Otherwise, as you said, if you just dictate whatever you feel like, you're going to keep just letting the emotion dictate your day, but more of how do you want to set your day up for success, especially regarding the emotion. I think a lot of people get hooked in that they think that however they wake up, that's the way that they feel, that's the way they feel. It's like going to the gym mindset, that healthier mindset, that, happier and all those emotions is like a muscle. If you don't start practicing strategies and creating the strategies, then again, you're being led through life instead of you leading through life, you know? The moment you have an instinct to act on a goal, you must physically move within 5 seconds or your brain will stop you. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. This is by Mel Robbins. I love this little tidbit. She goes, fact, you're never going to ever feel like it, ever. Right? So she says, whenever you want to do something new, right? When you're getting outside your comfort zone, let's say you're even going to say, oh, that person looks interesting, I should go over to speak to them. You have literally 5 seconds before your brain's going to call on the emergency brake and talk you out of it. Or if you're like, oh, I should go to the gym and work out, you have 5 seconds to maybe go put your sneakers in your gym bag or do something to move forward. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, you can count it. And then the negative self-talk will start coming in and take you off your game. So it's getting smarter. There's those strategies, right? How do you beat the 5-second rule? How do you do something, take some kind of action within that 5 seconds so that, again, you can keep moving forward? I mean, on days where I'm like, oh, I don't know if I want to work out, something I say to myself is, do it for 5 minutes. If you're tired, then just stop. And whenever I do that, I usually continue the workout. I think there was one time I didn't, and it was because I actually was tired. So I listened to my body and said, you know what, I'm actually tired. So I'm just gonna go down and rest. But a lot of times when you move that energy around, it just feels so good. Energy is meant to move, but we need to start, again, 5-second rules. We need to start planting, the reason why we're doing this and create strategies to help set us up for success versus letting the feeling like, oh, I don't really feel like it, right? Because as she says, you're never going to feel like it, ever. So, until you build that habit and it starts feeling really, really good and you get it more addicted to that good feeling, when you're first starting out, I should say that, it's really about how do you want to change that habit? How do you start recognizing where the brain is going to call on the emergency brake? So it's recognizing new mindset equals new results, right? If you don't change anything, you don't expect to change the results. It just, something needs to give, something needs to change, right? That's the biggest thing. You need to truly decide. You need to decide, right? When someone says, I should do that, I'm like, not going to happen. It's not a must, right? There's not enough energy there, because as soon as it's like a should, then whatever is going to come in that's a little bit better in the moment, brain's you're gonna chase that. I'm just gonna sit on the couch and eat some chips and right? That's different if you're like, I'm choosing to sit on the couch and eat chips and I'm gonna enjoy it. That's different, right? Versus, no, I really want to do this, or I should do this. There's a different energy there. Totally different energy. The quality of your life is a direct reflection of the quality of the questions you're asking yourself. So huge. The biggest thing is, if I could shout it from the mountaintop, the words that you say to yourself, the questions that you ask, the pictures you create in your head, right, has a massive impact on your life. Becoming more aware of that. If you ask yourself crappy questions, it's recognizing how that can lead to a whole different result. Like, why does this always happen to me? Well, your brain is going to answer you all the reasons, right? It's more of, what do I need to be doing differently? What are my options? Who do I need to become in order to accomplish this? What do I need to learn? How can I grow? How do I want to be thankful for this day? How can I add value? These are much more powerful questions, and your brain wants to answer them because that's how it kind of functions. It works, is help you. And again, it'll expand your awareness and your energy in a much more powerful way versus, again, those contracting thoughts, right? Those contracting questions. Be aware of the words that you say to yourself, and again, of that inner voice. And just for awareness, if you go inside your mind and say hello, that's the voice I'm talking about. It narrates your day all day long. The more you become aware of it, you realize how much it dictates everything. And the more you realize that you can have power of choice to recognize how you can influence it, and also recognize some things are just a thought. Just because you have a thought, it doesn't mean it's true, right? Start to question your own thinking. If you want more resilience, start questioning your own thinking. And of course, I wasn't going to spend much time on this, but I'm just going to throw it out there. Amanda, you were talking about rest, right at the beginning. And even people that do not get quality sleep over a long period of time, they will produce like a stress hormone without even a stressor present, right? So getting good quality sleep is important. Hydration, which I got some water, I'm going to take a drink now. We're mostly made up of water, so it makes sense to hydrate ourselves, hydrate your brain, hydrate your body. Physical exercise, as I said, it's getting that energy moving through your system. As I said, creating some just beautiful strategies of changing the energy up. In the morning, I will rock out some high power tunes and shake my booty in the kitchen, while I'm making breakfast. Something that puts you in a more positive state. It's doing those little things that make such a difference, because you will make different decisions versus if you're angry, versus if you're calm, versus if you're happy, if you're in complete joy. You will make different decisions based on how you feel. So the more you become aware of your emotions, they can be a beautiful guiding system. I'm going to tell you, and I'm not going to spend much time on this, don't think of emotions as good or bad. They all have relevance of why they show up. It's learning to understand your own emotions, and more importantly, how you do certain emotions as well. And smile. See miracles in life every day, right? Like the puppy, Amanda, that you were just saying in the puddle. It's those little things that can make life so meaningful, right? Or just even hug your dog when you get home, or your cat, or whatever animal, or your spouse, or your friends, or maybe not so much, we can't do that now, but something, right, that creates that life. Looking at a sunset is such a miracle. Just even how our body works. When you study the body, it's absolutely fascinating to me. Like even just when you drink your coffee or your water, that epiglottis, that that cartilage at the back of your throat flaps over so that the coffee doesn't go down your windpipe. That's a freaking miracle how our body is designed. So it's to recognize, we can get sucked into the things that aren't going right, but how do you ever stop and think about how much is going right? And it's, where do you want to put your focus? Where do you want to put your focus? Turn knowledge into action. So after everything I shared tonight, right? And I could go on and on, but I just want to give you some tips. Think about one thing that I shared tonight, one little takeaway that you could start doing something towards change, right? Or start implementing. I love Anthony Robbins when he says, knowledge is only potential power. Action is power. If you do nothing with it, nothing is going to change, right? So what action are you going to take to turn that knowledge into power? That's the big thing. Think about that for a moment. What you want to start doing. Feel free to type it in the chat. I'll check it out later. But one thing that's your takeaway and that you want to look at or start noticing or doing something different. And as Amanda said, I do have a new release book out, which I'm super stoked about. And the thing is, it's called The Gift of Shift. And so my colleague Ann Papiotti and I, we share 12 personal stories with, again, common themes in each chapter that a lot of people experience. And we want to create awareness around it. And actually, we're super stoked because for our readers, we created a private Facebook group. And we're having a virtual book club. So actually next Tuesday, we are starting this. We're starting with the first chapter, The Gift of InSync, Not the Band, which is all about synchronicities and coincidences. And I could talk about that forever. I love, love, love that topic. So again, that's just for people that are interested in that. That is something that we are doing. And again, I'm here for questions or any feedback. And I thank you for inviting me tonight. I truly, truly appreciate it.
Awesome. Yes. Thank you so much for coming. Again, like I said, I think people are feeling a lot of different fatigue.
Yeah.
I think we're Zoom fatigued. We are compassion fatigued, even in some cases, depending on what our jobs are. If you're dealing with people, I know I got compassion fatigue for at the beginning of the pandemic, listening to everybody's different stories. It was a lot because I was taking it on. So my big thing this year is what I've been trying to do is, and I have a little Post-it note actually next to me here. So it says, care, but don't carry.
So, good one. Big difference.
I want to care about what's happening. I want to care what people are saying to me. I want to, have that compassion. I don't want to carry it with me though. I need to leave it in that moment.
Yes.
Because it's a lot. And I felt I did that in 2020. I took on a lot. I carried a lot of stuff. My stuff, other people's stuff, carried a lot of stuff.
Especially when you're a caring, compassionate person. That is such a very common thing where they're so caring, they're so compassionate, and they take it everywhere, and it completely drains them, and so then they go down to, their light is completely dim, right? They haven't filled themselves up. That is so common, because that, as you said, they haven't learned the difference between care and carrying, and taking it on. So
so for me, big one, and again, I liked that article I'd read about the different types of rest, because it really just put that into perspective, because I was struggling with that too. I was fine, obviously different times in the pandemic, depending on what color we were in and what chaos was happening and all that stuff. My sleep schedule did fluctuate, but lately it's been good and I've been getting good sleep, but I would still have days where it's I'm so exhausted, so tired. Why is that? And when I read that article, it was because I realized there was, all these different aspects, different types of rest. Yes. And I might have been physically getting rest, but I wasn't, filling those other buckets. I wasn't being creative. I wasn't being outside. I wasn't connecting with loved ones, and you don't get to see colleagues and coworkers and things like that. So that gives me time to reflect too. So I'll start asking, like you said, those deeper questions and better quality questions. So if I'm feeling fatigued, and is it because I need sleep? Is it because I need to do something fun? Do I need to take a joy break? Kids take joy breaks. They just same thing. You're talking about dancing in the kitchen in the morning. Well, why don't we do that? Crank the tunes. When you need a break, take 15 minutes, turn on some good music, sing out loud, dance around. You give, like you said, shifts the energy.
Shift the energy, and just, again, create those different strategies. Who are the people that again fill your bucket up as well, right? Instead of constantly in that drain. A big thing for me is I love being outside. So my biggest thing is being in nature. My husband and I went for a ton of walks, especially on the weekend. because it filled me up. It just allowed me to feel connected to something greater than myself. I mean, it's taking those moments. Meditation is a huge thing.
Mm,
That's been a big gift in my life as well. It creates space. Like, it
yes.
creates mental spaciousness and helped me connect again to something greater than myself, as I said. But it's kind of like if I had a jar of sparkles, right? Again, remember, all those thoughts are going around. When you learn to meditate, and believe me, when I first started, I was like, oh my gosh, I think I even said that, you probably read that. I'm like, it was, but it's when you actually just, when I took my pressure off of what it even need to look like,
Yeah.
it's like, I'm just give myself space.
Yeah.
It's, you picture the sparkles, they settle, and then you see more clearly. It
Hmm.
really, that's the way I see it, is that you will see more clearly once you let the thoughts settle, and you can continue from that more connected space. Um,
Yeah,
and
for me, it was definitely too a misconception when I tried meditating, and I need to get better at it. I do it every once in a while, but not as often as I want to. But I
Mhm.
used to think that success in meditation was having no thoughts.
Yeah,
And it's not that at all. Like, I learned over time, it's about you recognize the thoughts rather than running with them. I start to see, I now see mine in a bubble. I'm like, oh, there's a thought. And then I see me just pushing the bubble, be like, you can go over there. And
yeah,
kind of, rather than just letting my mind spin. But like, same thing when I started, it was just like I just sat there with my eyes closed, and all those noisy thoughts just, I was kind of like, I just gave them time to just do their thing. But
yeah.
eventually, but the more you do it, the more you start to be the observer of the thoughts. And then same thing, it's not about not having any thoughts. It's about separating the kind of grip they have on you. And like I said, now I picture them in like a cloud or a bubble. And I'm just like, boop. As soon as I start to have one, I'm like, okay, well, that can go over there. We'll think about it later. So
Yes.
yeah, so it's an interesting process that, but it does help kind of calm. And same thing with the breathing, like you said. There was I think it's like you only have to take 3 deep breaths, and it changes, like, it calms your nervous system. So it's not even like you have to spend 10 minutes breathing. It's literally like if you're starting to feel anxious or stressed or angry, that if you just take 3 deep breaths in and out, you'll actually start to soothe your nervous system. So it's pretty cool. It's pretty powerful, the effect that it can have, and just kind of trying to incorporate some of that stuff.
Oh,
Um,
totally. And big time when you're breathing. As you said, it doesn't take a lot. Another thing that I would suggest is, when you're feeling anxious or stressed or overwhelmed, or someone ticks you off, um, recognize that and just say, okay, I'm totally ticked off right now. You don't say, oh, don't slap a happy sticker on it. Say it in yourself, like, I'm totally ticked off right now. It actually can calm down the amygdala, that part of the brain, like, oh, she got the message, right? you
yeah.
know um, so acknowledge it within yourself and take a breath, and that in itself can create more calm by breathing and acknowledging what you're feeling, right?
Yes,
Mhm.
absolutely. And I find another thing too, sometimes if I remember something, then I'm like, oh, I need to not forget about that. I just write it down, or I send myself an email, because then, like, your brain is just concerned that you don't forget it. And so if you if you don't put it somewhere, you'll start thinking about it. That's the one where you lay down to go to sleep, and all of a sudden you remember there's 16 different things you wanted to do at work that you forgot to do, and then your brain's just going to keep, you know marinating on it unless you do something with it. So a big technique I found for me that removed a lot of that stress and noise is, if I think of something in the evening that I want to make sure I get done at work, I send an email to myself from my personal email to my work email, and then future Amanda will deal with that in the morning. Present Amanda doesn't have to deal with it and think about it for the rest of the evening.
Yes.
So I find that works. Or just like write it out. If you have these big jumble of thoughts, like maybe it's not work related, it's just emotions, it's just overwhelming. Just free flow, right? It doesn't have to make any sense. You don't even have to do anything with it, but it's just getting it out of your head
Yeah.
somewhere else. It kind of tricks your brain into feeling like it's processed that. So that could be a technique people can do. Doodling, like, people used to do that all the time in
Yep.
school. And it's like, I always try to think of some of the things you did when you were younger, because for
Coloring.
some reason, adulting becomes no fun somewhere. And then
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
but you just need to incorporate some of those fun things. So doodling, coloring, like all that kind of stuff, dance breaks, all that fun stuff can really kind of help, like you said, adjust
Absolutely.
your mindset.
And even starting your day, like creating some kind of healthy routine starting your day. I remember listening to Evan Pagan years ago, and he said, shut off your phone.
Yeah.
Don't, when you first get up, don't check your phone, because now you're already sucked into that world of messages, on everybody else's time. And that stuck with me. So I'm like, okay, I'm not turning on my phone and getting sucked in. It's like, what do I want to accomplish today? What are
Yeah.
my 3 top things?
Yep.
And getting myself in that right mindset before I even approach my day. Yeah.
Yep. And I think too, like even think about it. I know some people like they're entrepreneurs or, or they're people like you, they're coaches or there's therapists and they have to have their phone, like they have to check their email throughout the day.
Yes.
But you could always like set up, maybe boundaries for yourself in terms of don't check your email when you're in the kitchen
Yeah.
or like pick a room, like it's still within your house.
Yes.
But then you don't feel like you have to, you're not obligated to, like, you know what I mean? If you're in, or maybe it's your, your living room, because that's where you spend time with your family, like whatever that is that you want to make sure you have that sacred space and that time. Well, then just commit to yourself, create that boundary that you're not going to check your emails or to have your phone in that room. And then it gives you the freedom as well to, when you're in the other rooms, feel free, don't feel guilty,
Yeah.
but just make sure that you set the boundary to, not do it in certain places.
I mean, just even think if they send that report of how much time you're on your phone.
Mhm.
Like, I think about that. Think about when you get that report, how many hours you spend. How many hours would that be creating
Yeah.
something
Yeah.
that you really desire in life? A new
Yeah.
skill, cause people say they don't have time. It's like, well, how much time do you spend on Facebook?
Mhm.
Like,
Yeah.
and I mean, we're on Facebook, but
Doom scrolling. Do
dude,
doom scrolling is
because it's
the
digital.
term. Yeah.
Yeah, but the scroll, like you're just mindlessly scrolling, you know. But I think it's just, again, creating some boundaries around that. Of of does it fuel you or does it
Yeah.
drain you? Are you comparing to everybody else and what they're doing, and it sucks you the life out of you? There's a difference, right?
Yeah.
What size you're on,
Yeah.
again, it just depends on what that is.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Absolutely. I think so for sure. And same thing. That's what people unfollow. Like that's the year. I think 2020 was also the year of the unfollow, because same thing. There was so much going on that you just didn't have time for the nonsense in your feed. Or on the other side, some people enjoyed it because they thought that was their entertainment, was other people's nonsense. So some people it worked and they embraced it, but other people they kind of blocked it out. So it's to each their own. But yeah, no, I think too it's in our desire to multitask. There's like studies starting to come out now that if you multitask all day at work, you're prone to multitask um, in the evening. For example, if you're sitting watching TV, you're scrolling on your phone. And then I started laughing when I heard that, because I felt like that's the everybody got owned on that one, right? Like who hasn't sat on the couch and scrolled on their phone while the TV's playing in the background. So yeah, so it's just interesting ideas of things to try to implement to kind of switch gears and feel like, because it's felt like the longest year ever, I think, for most people, and there has been silver linings. So those are important too, to kind of remember those, but maybe just switch gears, try something different. It's new year, we're still kind of riding this thing out. So if you're not liking how you're feeling up to this point, then incorporate some of the things you talked about this evening so that you can kind of shift gears a little bit and kind of hopefully start to feel a little bit better.
Absolutely, because it is about learning and growing, right? It's also learning and stepping back. Like when you looked at it, it's, I guess from my perspective, I'm like, how does people do fear? Right? Because everybody does fear differently. It was interesting. Like some people went into hopelessness, where some people are like, let me at them, like the fight or flight response,
Right.
right? It's just so interesting, because it's even like, I'm like, okay, what are you learning about yourself and how you do fear? What are you learning about yourself about how you do uncertainty?
Mm,
Because everybody does it different,
different.
right?
Hmm.
Even, and how they make decisions, everybody does it different. It's, everything is so mindset. It is unbelievable. Even how we store time, it's all in a mind thing. Like if you were
Yeah.
to, anyways, I won't get in that. That's another whole conversation. um, but it's amazing. And the more you learn about yourself, you recognize just the little things, right, that can make a huge difference.
Absolutely. So thank you so much. This was great. I want to again mention your book and check it out. People can get it at Chapters. It's very cool. I like it a lot. I'm going to finish mine this evening.
Thanks, Amanda.
Yeah. So again, I know you mentioned your website, but where can people find you if they want to learn more or
Yep.
get some advice, send you a message? What's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, you can go on my website. It's traceymaccoaching.com. So TRACEY MACcoaching.com. You can find me on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. Yeah, and I do every Tuesday, I do a video, something inspirational. So if you are looking for a little pop on Tuesday, I try to do it like less than a couple minutes just to kind of be that little bite size. But yeah, if you have a question, anything that I shared tonight, again, I freaking love this stuff. Feel free to reach out to me. I'd be more than happy to answer your question. Those worksheets that a couple of them I had up on there, again, just say, hey, I'd like a copy of that. No problem. I wouldn't mind sharing it at all. So yeah, feel free.
Awesome. Thank you. And thank you for being so involved with BPW, whether it's attending the meetings or presenting. So it was great. We love all the success you're having. We're very excited about your book and we're very excited to have you here tonight. And I hope people had some great takeaways. And with that, I'll let you get back to your evening. And thanks again. It was great. Great to see you.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you so
Take
much.
care.
Bye. Thank